Mudakaratamodakam sada vimukti sadakam. That's the starting line of the Mahaganesha Pancharatna Stotram, penned by none other than the wonderfully great Sri Adi Shankaracharya, who lived between 788 CE and 820 CE, which means he lived for a mere 32 years. But in that 32 years, he did what ordinary mortals can probably not do in 3200 years. That is the phenomenal genius of Sri Adi Shankaracharya, who took an avatar during a time when the Vedic scriptures were in danger of being discarded altogether, thanks to the widespread acceptance of Buddhism, and through that atheism, which was in any case already a part of Sanatana Dharma, but just one of the 6 schools. But giving too much prominence to one line of thought over the others makes it quite lopsided, and life becomes horrible for most people. So to bring back that balance, to let the rationalists stay rational, within quotes, and yet come up with far deeper experiential truths, which are essentially by their very nature subjective, and therefore cannot stand the test of the so-called scientific measures of the West, but is there for everyone to see and experience. So it's like saying, just because Newton hadn't yet discovered gravity, before that gravity didn't exist. That would be as stupid as saying that spirituality is not true unless it is proved in a lab, which may never happen. But even if it happens, probably we are far, far away from that happening. But essentially, most of us at least have glimpses of spiritual union with the rest of the universe, at least for a few seconds in our entire lifetimes. And so we know that it exists, just that we are not able to sustain it. And for the scientists, we're not able to measure and prove it. Well, far beyond all that was the genius of Sri Adi Shankaracharya, born at Kaladi, which is his father's place, and such was the greatness of the Bharatiya culture of seers that we don't even have an historic account of exactly where he was born, because of which there are multiple places claiming his birth, some of them by the śankara mutts of Kanchi, Sringeri, and also the Chinmaya mission, which constructed a wonderful place around his supposedly maternal home, because Kerala has a matrilineal culture as opposed to the patrilineal culture in most of the world, including the rest of India. So we have so many more wonderful places to celebrate Adi Shankaracharya, apart from the 4 main mutts that he established. It's also said that he left in a 5th mutt, which is the Kanchi mutt, which is again one of the most profound deep and long-lasting centers of śankara studies, if you would like to call it that way. This great genius, some others say, just walked away out of his body at Kedarnath, which experienced devastating floods a couple of years back. Well, the fact that he celebrated all the way from Kaladi in Kerala, Kanchi in Tamil Nadu, to Kedarnath in Uttarakhand, all 3 Ks, shows how far his reach out had been. 1,200 years back. That's the amazing greatness of this person, that he could travel across the length and breadth of this country, not only from north to south as we just discussed, but also from east to west, because he established mutts at Dwarka and Puri in Gujarat and Odisha to represent the western and eastern parts of the nation, as well as the north and south through the Joshi Mutt at Badrinath and the Sringeri Mutt at Sringeri in Karnataka, South India. Now, it's not just that this man traveled almost 3 times south to north and back. He's also said to have re-established all the tenets of Hinduism, as it is called by the foreigners, or Sanatana Dharma as its real nature is, to bring back a balance, as I said, between its various philosophical systems. And he was perhaps one of the greatest known persons to have integrated the path of action, devotion, knowledge, and the mysticism that is essentially karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, and raja yoga into a single Sankhya yoga. The systems which have been in vogue for long as separate ones were combined to give a holistic perspective, a development of our physical nature, emotional nature, intellectual nature, the life or pranic nature, and, of course, the spiritual nature. In order to accomplish this, all that he had as a weapon was his genius, and symbolic of that was a stick that he carried, the Ekadanda. And it's that Ekadanda which has become symbolic of many different ascetic monastic lineages over time. If you know of saints whose names end with Ananda or Giri or Saraswati, etc., they're all essentially descending from the Advaitic traditions of Adi Shankaracharya. Does it mean he's the progenitor of Advaita philosophy? No, not at all. It's the very essence of our Sanatana Dharma in the Vedanta, or the Anta of the Vedas, the Upanishads, and in particular the 12 principal Upanishads. And Adi Shankaracharya was instrumental in identifying them from amongst 108 principal Upanishads. And he wrote vast commentaries on all of these, apart from the other two which he said were part of a Prashna Traya, or the triple questioning philosophies or scriptures, namely the Brahma Sutras and the Bhagavad Gita, apart from the Upanishads or Vedanta. And he's written very detailed commentaries on these. Such amazing rationale and logic into the philosophy. It's of course with the same writing abilities that he went on to have his debating skills conquer the hearts and minds of followers of many other philosophies of that time, which were just distracting away from the eternal principles. And some of these debates lasted for days to weeks, the most famous of them being with Mandana Mishra, who was to later become Sureshwaracharya, a disciple of Adi Shankaracharya and the first Shankaracharya of the Sringeri Peetham. This particular person, in his pre-sannyasa days as Mandana Mishra, was married, and he was perhaps the best known philosopher, orator and debater of those times. Nobody could win him over. Adi Shankaracharya was on a Digvijaya. Dig meaning directions and Vijaya meaning special victories. He was having special victories in all directions. Wherever Adi Shankaracharya went after he was 12, he was winning over debates and students and the promotion of the Sanatana Dharma philosophy or way of life rather. Never claimed anything to himself. It was just his way of interpreting it in a contemporary sense for his own times. But that turned out to be valid for all times. Even today, many of his works are of such great significance and wonder that people are amazed a single person could do it, and that too within such a short work period of 12 years to 32 years, about 20 years, while traveling north to south and east to west, and debating, and yet compiling such wonderful commentaries, bhashyams on the Prashna Traya, as well as coming up with his own original Bhakti Stotras, of which the Mahaganesha Pancharatna Stotram is one, Bhaja Govindam, Viveka Chudamani, etc. And many stotrams which are the Ashtakams, like the Kala Bhairavashtakam, Shivashtakam, Krishnashtakam, Gangashtakam, Narmadashtakam, Triveniyashtakam, and so on, Kanakadhara Stotram, etc. Gangā Stotram is of significance because while tomorrow is Shankara Jayanti, day after tomorrow is Gangā Saptami, and coinciding with Shankara Jayanti is also the Gayatri Jayanti, and Adi Shankaracharya has written wonderful commentaries on the extended version of the Gayatri Mantra, wherein we inhale while observing as a mere witness all of the 7 major chakras and taking our attention to beyond our body, physical body, to the subtle and causal body centers above the Sahasrara Chakra, and reciting the Gayatri Mantra mentally and bringing back through another mantra the breath and attention back from the top chakras all the way to the Muladhara Chakra. Bhu. Just observe what happens when you say this at the Muladhara Chakra, where the Ganapati, established as part of a 5-deity prayer practice by Adi Shankaracharya, being the great practical genius that he was, not only did he give the theories as philosophies, but also showed us how to practice them. And one of his greatest gifts was the worship in the form of an invocation rather than prayer, as is common in Western cultures. So at the Muladhara Chakra, we can observe Mudakarata Modakam, and those of you who know the entire Mahaganesha Pancharatna Stotram, while hearing that, you can meditate upon the Muladhara Chakra, the base of the spine, between the genitals and the anus, and recognize that the spirit of Ganesha, with his powers of Siddhi, Buddhi, and his daughter of contentment, Santoshi Mata, can see the presence of all of these energies while experiencing our own leadership capabilities, or Vinayaka, the special Nayaka Tattva. And then come one chakra higher, from Bhu to Aum Bhuvaha, from the physical to the subtle, from the earth plane to the water plane, the fluidy plane of the mind. And there, what does Adi Shankaracharya have in store for us? Well, it is the Subramanya Bhujanga, a wonderful compilation of heart-rending outflow of emotions with the ultimate truths. While Adi Shankaracharya was visiting Tiruchendur in Tamil Nadu, the Murugan temple over there on the seashore, the Subramanya Bhujangam is an absolute asset and device to take us to oneness with this Skanda Tattva. And then, going one step further up, we come to the Manipuraka Chakra, right behind the navel. And there, the Dharma Granthas which Adi Shankaracharya wrote commentaries upon come into focus as we observe Dharma Shastra Swami Sharanamayappa over there in the navel chakra of Manipuraka. Taking further up, once we come to the Anahata Chakra of the heart, right behind the heart in the spinal cord of the subtle body, we experience Aum Maha, the Mahaloka of our own everythingness, along with its prosperous strengths to maintain, sustain. And here we can hear the reverberation of Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamate Samprapte Sannihite Kale Nahi nahi rakshati Dukrun Karane Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamate. And of course the Kanakadhara Stotram for Sri Mahalakshmi. Going further up, we are done with Aum Bhuhu, Aum Bhuvaha, Augum Swaha, Aum Mahaha. Now we come to Aum Janaha at the Vishuddhi Chakra, the pit of the throat, where we keenly observe and experience its very true nature of Saraswati Brahma, of our own creativity, communication and artistry. And here you see the Sharada Stotram of Adi Shankaracharya, and of course the Brahma Sutra Bhashyams. Going further up to the Ajna Chakra between our eyebrows, we experience the Saundarya Lahari of Sri Adi Shankaracharya, the Mother Goddess Parvati, the mother of all the entities that we observed earlier on, namely the Ganesha Tattva, Skanda Tattva, Ayyappa Tattva, Lakshmi Tattva and Saraswati Tattva, the mother of all, the mother of the entire universe, the dark energy Mahakali, which constitutes almost a 3/4 of the entire universe, even according to Western science today. Aum Tapaha, because the color of the goddess is the same as that of fire, Jata Vedas. That's why in the Vedas it is said, Aum Katyayanaya Vidmahe Kanyakumari Dhimahi Tanno Durgi Prachodayat Aum Jata Vedase Sunavama Soma Marati Yato Nidahati Vedaha Sanaha Parshadati Durgani Vishwa Naveva Sindhum Dhuritatyagnihi Tam Agnivarnab Tapasa Jvalantim Vairochanim Karma Faleshu Jushtam Durgam Devigam Sharanamaham Prapadye Sutarasitarase Namaha. So it is the penance or tapa loka that we witness over here of the dark energy Mahakali, Durga Kalika Parameshwari, the Kolluru Mukambike, which again has a very direct connection with Adi Shankaracharya. Not only was he into the Advaitic Jnana Yoga, but into the Tantric practices as well, which is why he established so many goddesses like Kolluru Mukambika, Sringeri Sharadambal, Kanchipura Kamakshi, and Kashi Vishalakshi. Going further up to the Satyaloka, Augum Satyam of the Sahasrara Chakra, he experienced the Shiva Tattva, of which Adi Shankaracharya is an Amshavatar. Śankara essentially means that which attracts, and Shiva means that which is not. That which is not and that which attracts is of course the black hole, the dark matter, which absorbs everything into itself thanks to its stillness, out of which arises the most dynamic dance of Nataraja. And there's absolutely no lack of the number of hymns that Adi Shankaracharya has composed on himself and ourself as our own nothingness. The most famous of that, of course, being the Panchakshari Mantra. Expounded. The Panchakshari Mantra is already there in the Rudram of the Vedas. But for each one of those letters there, Na, Ma, Shi, Va, Ya, he gave a 2-line expansion, and that Panchakshari Stotram that is there is a wonderful celebration of Shiva. Similarly, the Ardhanarishwara Stotram, the Kala Bhairavashtakam, etc. The tantric practices over time have gotten negative connotations because of the left-handed black magic. But technology is always a double-edged sword. As Alfred Nobel very well knew, at least towards the latter half of his life. The Adi Shankaracharya technologies were thus not just left for the open, but given in the hands of 4 of the most well-versed, spiritually experienced geniuses themselves, Hastamalaka, Trotakacharya, Sureshwara, so on, and they were sent to establish the 4 mathas, the north, south, east and west, which continue till date almost uninterruptedly all the places, except for during certain invasions, etc. The most continuous of them being the southern mutts of Sringeri and Kanchipuram, of course. Jai Jai Shankara Hara Hara Shankara, Jai Jai Shankara Hara Hara Shankara, Jai Jai Shankara Hara Hara Shankara. Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Narayanam Padmabhavam Vashishtam Shaktim cha tatputra parasharam cha Vyasam shukam gaudapadam mahantam Govinda yogindra matasya shishyam Shri Shankaracharya matasya padma Padam cha hasta malakam cha shishyam Tam trotakam va tikakara manyan Asmat kurun san tatamanatosmi Shruti smruti purananam Alayam karunalayam Namami bhagavat padam Shankaram loka shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Bhadarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande